Chapter 14, Two Committees. So Alicia's dad finds out about me, and then her mom does too. It's not much of a story. It's Friday in the library, and Alicia's taking heat from her dad about why she's talking to the wall for 5 minutes straight. And I can see that she's going to have to start lying for me, and I don't want her to have to do that. So I just began talking to her dad. And he stutters and squints and passes through all the phases that Mom, Dad, and Alicia have. Fear, confusion, disbelief, and then amazement that levels out to a steady curiosity. Of course, for Mom and Dad, the final phase is a steady worry that keeps on chewing at them. But that's because they're my parents, and parents can't help worrying about their kids, even if they're fine. So as the professor, Leo Van Dorn, gets over the shock, he immediately starts to theorize just like my dad did, except that he's an astronomer. So instead of talking calmly about visible light anomalies and refractive indexes like Dad did, he's pacing around the room looking at me from every angle while he runs one hand through his Einstein hair, and he's saying that I'm like a black hole. A different absorptive principle, of course, but quite extraordinary nevertheless. The next person who has to know is Alicia's mom. After all, you can't have 2/3 of a family knowing a juicy secret like the Bobby story. So as they leave the library, I tell Alicia and her dad it's okay to tell Mrs. Van Dorn, as long as they're sure she won't go nuts and call the cops or something. And late Friday afternoon, Alicia's mom passes through the same steps when Alicia and her dad tell her about me. I hear about it later on the phone from Alicia. First, her mom thinks Alicia and her dad are ganging up on her to play a practical joke. When she finally believes them, she goes right to the heart of her problem with the whole situation. She says to Alicia, "What does this young man wear when you meet with him?" And Alicia says, "On really cold days, he wears saran wrap. He wears saran wrap, but most of the time he's naked." Mrs. Van Dorn is not amused by this. And my first visit to Alicia's house, that's on Saturday afternoon. It didn't help that Alicia didn't tell her mom that I was coming. I ring the doorbell, and I think it's going to be Alicia, and it's this lady in an exercise leotard with her hair up and a headband. Alicia standing behind her, grinning toward the doorway. And her mom looks around, up and down the sidewalk, and she gets this angry flash in her eyes, and she's about to slam the door shut when I say, "Mrs. Van Dorn, I'm Bobby Phillips. Alicia said I could come over to see her today." And her mom's eyes bug out, and she steps back and gasps. She does not know what to do, which is when Alicia pipes up and says, "Sorry, Mom, I forgot to tell you. It's okay, isn't it, if Bobby comes in for a while?" And I can tell by the look on Alicia's face that she did it on purpose, surprising her mom and me. Her mom lets me in, but she says, "Stand right there," and she runs, really runs, and brings me a long white terry cloth robe to wear.